Hello there, everybody. Let's take a brief look at the astrology of March 2025 and see what's in store. It's a pretty interesting astrological month with some very rare occurrences and equally some slightly less than rare occurrences that happen every once in a while but don't happen very often. Let's start with that one first, which is we're going to have several planets transiting through a section of the sky called Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra. Now, I know there are some of you who are not familiar with what nakshatras are. We'll get to that here in a moment and what Uttara Bhadrapada specifically is all about. But just to give you a little bit more of a summary of what's going on in March, we also are going to have both Venus and Mercury retrograde for the entire month of March. Now, Venus will go retrograde earlier on in the month, and it will be in a section of the sky called Revati Nakshatra, and then eventually backtracking into Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra. And Mercury will be transiting through Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra, and then it's going to be, he's looking over at his notes here, and then it's going to be stationing in Revati Nakshatra. More on that here in a moment as well, before it backtracks its way through Revati and again Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra. Now, Venus is going to go retrograde, station retrograde, on the 2nd of the month, and Mercury is going to station retrograde on the 15th, a day after we have a total lunar eclipse, which will be taking place in Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra. Right? We'll go over all these nakshatra things here in a moment because I know there's some of you who are not familiar with the world of nakshatras. So, in addition to that, we're also going to have at the end of the month Neptune changing signs. So first of all, on the eclipses, we're going to have the total lunar eclipse on the 14th, and then we're going to have a partial solar eclipse on the 29th, and then ending the month off, we're going to have Neptune entering the sign of Aries. Now that's big news because Neptune only really changes signs like every 13 and roughly 13 and a half years. So Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces, which is its home for quite a long time now. So this is quite a momentous shift. Let's talk about this Uttara Bhadrapada energy. And first of all, let's talk about nakshatras for those of you who may not be familiar with what nakshatras are. Nakshatras are another division of the sky. They're a division of something called the stellar sphere. And nakshatras basically are 13 degrees and 20 minutes each. And they're similar, but not exactly like signs. They condition a planet, and equally, they're very profound in their symbolism. And quite often, their symbolism will manifest when that planet is transiting through the sign in a more precise and I guess the word I want to use, powerful and symbolic way, right? So, for instance, you might find yourself thinking about rivers a lot, which are a very Uttara Bhadrapada thing, right? You might have a desire to walk by rivers, but we're not going to go into all of that stuff. I'm just trying to give you a general idea of like what nakshatras are about. They're really powerful and they're very profound. So, what about Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra? Well, what does that mean, first of all? Uttara Bhadrapada means the latter lucky feet. And what kind of a lucky feet are these latter lucky feet? Okay. Well, it's going to sound really morbid, but they're the feet of a funeral cot, right? And most of us don't think of that as being something that's fortunate, but it's the concept of the final resting place before liberation. The nakshatras start with Ashwini nakshatra, which is divine potential splintering off and coming into a state of dualism. What's beginning to happen, or what's taking place, I should say, with Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra is the reintegration of that duality. With Purva Bhadrapada, right before Uttara Bhadrapada, and Uttara Bhadrapada, one meaning Purva meaning former, Uttara meaning latter, there's this deep reintegration of the shadow self. There's this connection of understanding the light and the dark in all individuals, right? And because of that, Uttara Bhadrapada can have a very humanitarian nature to it because it understands that there's this dualism that exists within each and every one of us. Some key themes to look at when planets are transiting through Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra is the concept of repressed desires. Sometimes we desire something and are either not able to have it or don't allow ourselves to have it. And what ends up happening is eventually over time, we repress those desires almost to the level that we're not aware that they exist. But what ends up happening is they kind of operate in the background, kind of subconsciously propelling us to do certain things that then make it seem like we're kind of working against ourselves. And so, hence, we have the reintegration of the two sides and some themes that generally happen with Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra are discovering sides of yourself that you didn't know that you had, or discovering things about another person that you didn't know were really going on. In either instance, it has a revelatory nature. When it's with another person, sometimes it can be shocking or something that we don't want to know about the person. And, eventually it can lead to us going, okay, well, I guess I have a shadow side too, so I should take a look at that. And these are some of the ways that Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra work. So, what about Revati Nakshatra, which is where Venus and Mercury are going to be going through part of their retrograde motion in the month of March? Revati is the final nakshatra. It's the liberation, but it's also the void between two different periods of existence, right? We're surrendering to the understanding that we're not really this dualistic being. We're surrendering to the divine within each and every one of us, and we're letting go. But when we let go, there's also a need to have trust and to have faith and have hope because we spend most of our lives in an egoic state of existence, right? And so when we're trying to trust in the fact that we're, a spirit and a soul also, well, initially that's not so easy. We kind of, get caught up in survival mentality, thinking that things are not going to go well unless we're somehow involved with pushing the buttons a little bit. And there are themes with that with Revati Nakshatra. There's one part surrender and one part going, I'm not really sure about this. And there's a tendency to somewhat partially accept but equally assert oneself against the things that one is not necessarily happy about. And there's quite often a theme with Revati Nakshatra of development and being in a state of limbo, like waiting for something else to happen. So some of you might find yourselves in positions where different areas of your life are in a state of limbo. You're kind of waiting for things to change, but they're not quite there yet. So, how about these eclipse cycles, right? So, the lunar eclipse is going to be taking place in Uttara Falguni Nakshatra, and the solar eclipse at the end of the month taking place in Revati Nakshatra, which we just spoke about. But let's talk a little bit about Uttara Falguni Nakshatra. Just like there's a Purva Bhadrapada and an Uttara Bhadrapada, there's a Purva Falguni and an Uttara Falguni. Purva Falguni and Uttara Falguni are the coming together and the consummation of the divine relationship. Now, sometimes when there are key things happening in these nakshatras, relationships will take special prominence during these times. But one of the things that it's reflecting is our own relationship with self or with soul or with spirit, right? And how we, get caught, I guess I want to say, in this state of egoic existence. Which we've touched on that theme. We were talking about the reintegration with the Bhadrapadas. With the Purva Falguni and Uttara Falguni, there's the coming together and the recognition of, hey, I'm both this and I'm this, right? But the level of trust is less. Okay, there's less of a trust in spirit because the Purva Falguni and Uttara Falguni are what are called tamasic nakshatras. So they're stuck in a state of darkness more so. So tamasic nakshatra is the beginning of the exploration of that realm of spirit which exists within us. But there's a laziness connected to it. There's a reluctance. There's, a desire to kind of keep things static, right? Because again, there's less of a sense of trust. With Uttara Falguni, there's the need to be brave, the need to be strong, and the need to overcome that resistance to unite with oneself. Now, on the external level, in terms of relationships, Purva Falguni is like the formation of the relationship. Uttara Falguni relates to how we benefit from a relationship. So you may find some relationship themes taking key prominence in March, looking at how you benefit from particular connections. But equally, there's a whole level of you needing to recognize where you need to be more assertive, where you need to stand your ground, and where you need to have greater levels of courage. And as I mentioned, we've got good old dreamy, imaginative, confusing, illusionary, and doubtful Neptune beginning to transit through the sign of Aries, dipping its toes into Aries. I think it's between like, don't quote me on this. I think it's between like late March and October, and then it will regress back into Pisces. But some key things to look at over the course of the next several months with Neptune's transit through Aries are the themes of not being certain where a particular path is going, wanting to assert oneself, but maybe feeling reluctant because you're not sure if you're being prone to fits of fantasy or if you can trust your imagination. Those are key themes too. Creative visioning, but kind of going, yeah, but I'm just going to keep that in the realm of vision, right? Until we begin to explore new ways of existence. There's a very pioneering spirit to Neptune and Aries, which we're likely going to see over the course of the next 13 years, but we're just beginning to explore that at the end of March. And that will be transiting through Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra at that time. So deep revelations with Neptune's transit through Uttara Bhadrapada lead to even greater exploration of new ways forward. So thanks a lot for watching this. We're going to move on. For those of you who are watching this in as an intro into your personal horoscopes, we're going to get into those now. For those of you who are just watching this on my YouTube channel, then we're going to have those horoscopes for you in a few days. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.